Okay, folks, it's really time to decide where your loyalties lie. Keith Ellison is running to become the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. And he has gotten quite a few endorsements from various people in the Democratic Party. And everything looked like it was going to pretty much go smoothly until the Israelis got involved, okay? The Jewish people. Now, I had heard a statement that was made a while ago. And that statement was, your friends won't always be your friends, and your enemies won't always be your enemies, but your self-interests will always be there. And in my opinion, that particular statement is apropos for what is going on now. Now, I had noticed that anytime anybody says anything about Israel is negative or fairly neutral regarding anything to do with Israel, all of a sudden, the majority of the Jewish organizations come out of the woodworks condemning the person. Now, I refer you back to the primary when Donna Edwards ran against a person that was pretty much handpicked by Nancy Pelosi to win the governorship for the state of, I'm sorry, I say governorship, to win the Senate position in the state of Maryland. Now, Maryland is highly Democratic. Republican pretty much has no chance of winning in the state of Maryland. So whoever won the Democratic primary basically was going to be the senator from Maryland. Now, I believe the person's name, as a matter of fact, I know the person's name was Chris Van Holden. Well, Chris Van Hoyt. I know his first name was Chris. He was the hand-picked person endorsed by Nancy Pelosi, and funny thing about it, he was also endorsed by various members of the Congressional Black Caucus over Donna Edwards. What was Donna Edwards' big sin? She spoke up about issues as far as Israel was concerned, and she didn't glad hand with all of the powers that be in Congress. So since Chris was on the end with all the powers that be, and she wasn't what you would call a favored daughter of the Congressional Black Caucus, even though she was a member, they chose not to support her. So obviously, that was going to be a problem. But what troubled me was all of these Jewish organizations came in against her, and the reason they gave was because she wasn't, quote unquote, 100% behind Israel, and that she had made what they considered to be derogatory comments about the U.S. relationship with Israel. Well, you know something? Israel is not squeaky clean, pure white, etc., etc., etc. And I have made various videos regarding some of the things that they do. Now, they are, as far as I'm concerned, the aggressors as far as the Palestinian issue is concerned. But even more important than that, the Israelis practice sterilization of black people, and that's documented. The birth control methods they use on people that have access to their country coming in from Africa, Ethiopia, and countries within that region that have a legitimate reason to go to Israel, the women are given various drugs that they know create sterility. And if you don't believe me, do your own research, but it's out there. Now, regarding Keith Ellison, if Israel doesn't agree to a two-state solution with Palestine, either it ceases to be a Jewish state or you say the Arabs don't get the vote, which is apartheid. Is that Donald Trump, soon-to-be Secretary of Defense, or a candidate for chairman of the Democratic National Party? How about United States policy in the Middle East is governed by what is good or bad through a country of 7 million people, a region of 350 million, all turns on a country of 7 million. Does that make sense? Both are highly provocative statements, yet only one of them, the latter, spoken by Ellison, has led Jewish organizations to cry foul. The Anti-Defamation League called the comments disqualifying. Meanwhile, the predominant response to Marine General James Mattis' remarks have been crickets. Only the far-right Zionist Organization of America has objected to his nomination. So on the one hand, you got Donald Trump's boy making statements regarding Israel and its position and quote-unquote interest in the Middle East that the United States stands 100% behind. And then the second statement has been made by Keith Ellison, and you got all of the Jewish groups jumping up and down left and right about it and claiming that he's disqualified from becoming chairman of the DNC. All right, let me read the rest of the article to you, and then I'll make some further comments. Meanwhile, the extreme hawkish Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs, whose leadership is heavily represented on the Trump transition team, defended Mattis, contorting itself to say that Mattis now has a chance to become an even closer friend of the State of Israel. Moreover, the ADL's double standard, attacking Ellison but not Mattis, actually predates the recent revelation of the new tape. On November 25th, ADL's executive director, Jonathan Greenblatt, put a blog post on Medium.com expressing the legitimate concerns raised by many as to whether his prospective leadership will help or harm the bipartisan nature of the U.S.-Israeli relationship. As a full disclosure, the person who wrote the article is a member of ADL's task force on online harassment of journalists, which completed its work in September. The ADL's new statement was contradictory. On the one hand, it alleged that Ellison's newly revealed comments raised the specter of age-old stereotypes about Jewish control of our government. On the other hand, the statement's primary complaint is that it raises serious doubts about his ability to faithfully represent the party's traditional support for Israel. Are those the same? Of course they aren't. The latter is an alleged policy shift, the former is bigotry. So why does the ADL shift effortlessly between the two, and why the lack of outrage on Mattis's remarks? Obviously, the answer has to do with the shifting politics around Israel in the American Jewish community, and perhaps more importantly, within the Democratic Party. American Jews voted overwhelmingly for Clinton over Trump, roughly 80% to 20%. Yeah, I guess that's overwhelmingly. That's higher than either of President Obama's victory margins. Yeah, okay. The reason were many. Trump's fans in the anti-Semitic alt-right and the candidate's refusal to explicitly condemn them, the role of Steve Bannon, who ran a platform for the alt-right as Trump's campaign manager, and the predominant liberalism among non-Orthodox Jews. But the Jewish establishment is disproportionately run by Israel hawks, both in professional roles and donor roles. It makes sense when you think about it. Those Jews who gave the most money to Jewish causes also happen to be more ethnocentric and nationalistic when it comes to the Jewish state. Liberal mega donor George Soros may make headlines, but he is the anomaly. When it comes to supporting Jewish organizations like the ADL, most donors are more like Sheldon Adelson. And let's face it, there's plenty of Islamophobia with my Jewish community as well. The ADL is a perfect example. It is, excuse me. It has done great work to combat Islamophobia, but sometimes it encourages it, and as when the organization under its former leadership spoke out against the Ground Zero Mosque, which was not a mosque, not at ground zero, and in fact led by moderate Muslims and Sufis. The same split has also appeared within the Democratic Party. On the one side are the traditional Israel hawks who have long comprised the Democratic mainstream. Hillary Clinton, for example. This faction may want to push the current Israeli government to make peace, but remember, so do the vast majority of Israeli generals and intelligence chiefs. A two-state solution is what security hawks, unlike ideology hawks, want. On the other side, though, are younger Democrats, Bernie Sanders supporters, younger people of color, and other progressives. Their Israel politics are far to the left of the current DNCs. Many were born after the handshake on the White House lawn. Their whole lives, Israel has been Goliath and the Palestinians have been David. And for most of that time, Israel has been led by increasingly right-wing governments. In both ways, this is the opposite experience from that of older generations. Moreover, many link support of Black Lives Matter and other progressive causes with support of the Palestinian BDS movement intersectionally, stylistically, and socially. The causes are linked. These younger Democrats may be naive or idealistic, cloudy-eyed or clear, but for far better or for worse, they see the fight against Israel occupation as their version of the fight against apartheid. To an extent, the fracture has existed for a long time. Zogby, who is himself Lebanese American, has been pushing for a realignment on Israel for decades, but he used to be an outlier. Now, his view is shared by the apparently ascendant wing of the party itself. We saw the effects of this during the drafting of the Democratic platform when Sanders delegates, including James Zogby and Cornel West, pushed for language critical of Israel and were roundly rejected by the majority. But as the angst over Ellison reveals, we ain't seen nothing yet. Israel is one of the issues dividing the Democratic old guard from the new. And Keith Ellison is a perfect embodiment of it. He is the ideal successor to Sanders, progressive with a sharp tongue and strong vision, and yes, his politics on Israel are to the left of the Democratic mainstream, let alone the American center. He has been critical of Israeli settlements, of right-wing Israeli governments, and of America's unconditional support for Israel. He notes some of those shifts in the contentious comments themselves when he linked the shift in American politics to the shift in American demographics. When the Americans who trace their roots back to those 350 million, i.e. Muslim and Arab Americans, get involved, everything changes. Those are indeed scary words to pro-Israel Jewish Democrats, even if they also reflect reality. For the first time, it's clear that Ellison has also been unfairly targeted because he is Muslim. Critics dredge up pro-Farrakhan comments he made when he was a kid, comments which denied, not defended, Farrakhan's anti-Semitism, but not only has Ellison apologized, recanted, backtracked, condemned, and otherwise genuflected in the years since, he has also made statement after statement defending Israel. The world needs a secure Israel, which he said in 2010. Every country has a right to defend itself. He said that in 2009, but nothing he says seems to be enough. In 2020, the split between old school and new school Democrats will be more acute than this year. The donor base, the establishment infrastructure, the congressional delegations, and older Jewish voters all lean to the traditional pro-Israel side. The insurgents, the Sanders camp, younger Democrats, and younger Jews do not. Whether Ellison becomes DNC chair or not, he is a symbol of the dilemma the party faces. Arguably, it loses either way. Now, my point is this. Keith Ellison wants the job. Keith Ellison is a perfect candidate for the job. Keith Ellison should get the job. Those traditional pro-Jewish people need to get on board. If they don't, then there needs to be a split. For those of you who have political assuasions, we need to make a decision. I believe that Keith Ellison will act more in our self-interest than anybody else that's currently a candidate for this particular office, and that includes Jamie Harrison. The Jews are basically pushing their own agenda, we need to push ours. As I have said previously, we need to look after our community first, second, third, fourth, fifth, on down. And it's in our best interest that Keith Ellison get this position. Now, our best interests at this point apparently don't align themselves with the interests of the pro-Israel Jewish Democrats or independents in general. We need to stand united behind Keith Ellison, and if it comes to it, I believe that our block is a hell of a lot larger than theirs. Now, when you were talking about finances, yes, the Jewish people can contribute a heck of a lot more as far as individual donors are concerned. But if we take a page out of Bernie Sanders' book, we can go to the general public and get the necessary financing we need in order to run successful races both in 2018 and 2020. It's been proven that money isn't everything, and sometimes money isn't anything. This is one of those times where we need to step up to the plate and do the right thing. And in my opinion, the right thing is getting Keith Ellison into that spot, regardless of what the Jewish bloc thinks.